a message to all of my Japanese English language teachers. This one is titled, actually this is taken from a Japan Times article, What's Wrong with English Education in Japan? Pull up a chair. An all too familiar topic for us native English teachers. Look, in short, the English education in Japan is horrible. Here are 3 reasons why it's horrible. And this is just like, this is the like what the tip of the iceberg only. So these are 3 reasons that are just the tip of the iceberg. It goes a lot deeper. Oh, and this is an article by, of course, like I said before, Japan Today, not Japan Times, sorry. And the author of this piece is K.K. Miller. It's dated October 7, 2014, and of course not much has changed. If anything has changed, but the textbooks have changed. Of course, they change like every 5 years or something like that. But it's still, you get the same results. So pull up a chair like the article said. Sorry, I didn't give the author just due. I'll get his name later. Anyway. So, I'll start with the basics. With a basic empirical analysis of the problem, because I'm a teacher here too, and I've been here for about close to 20 years. The kids in grade school skip phonics as a whole and are pushed into a world of nonsensical English phrases that native speakers do not use. So we're talking about like archaic phrases, some things that they just make up in the textbooks because they just want to do it. So yeah, it leaves a lot of natives in awe if you've been here as long as I have. First thing, imagine learning a language without learning the basic sounds of that language, like phonics. The kids here don't learn phonics unless they're in like an international school. But obviously the Japanese teachers can't teach phonics, the English phonics sounds, because they can't create those sounds that we can create, like ah. They can't create an ah. The eh is in hiragana. You can do the eh. E is a flat, but they go e, ah, which is the short O sound. Sounds like the hiragana ah, and which is a throat sound that they can't make. So the teachers are not equipped to teach phonics here. Well, especially the sounds. Okay, anyway, skipping over all of the basics and being forced to speak nonsensical and even archaic parts of our language. So, yeah. Okay, so if you can imagine what it's like, you stepped into the weird world of English language teaching in Japan. And, yeah. So, I'll get back to that in a second, but let's concentrate on this article first. But let's take a look at what's wrong with English education in Japan from the article perspective, which I'm full throatedly like for this article. It just like it says a lot in like one page or something like that, but I'm just full throatedly for it. So I just got to have the Jimaku, but the translations on the bottom, just so my folks in Japan can read this. So, and number 1, teaching to the tests. So usually, well, no, not usually. No, when they do step into junior high school, the kids just learn everything for that test, for that entrance test, the high school entrance test. Everything is taught, and everything is grammatical. Even the grammar that they're taught is weird because the Kikoku Shijo, the students from overseas that return, they're like, what is this? They've come from a native environment where natives speak native English, and they come here to a weird world of just, what are you doing? So anyway, about 100% of 90% of the learning in junior high school, the English curriculum is geared towards test taking when they get out of their third year, which is they're really ninth graders in their third year of high school, in the third year of junior high school. But all of that is done just for to take that entrance exam. So the focus on the high school entrance exams start when they enter junior high school. The teachers mostly being ESL students themselves, with many of them only spending about 1 or 2 years overseas, which is not enough time to even master a language, which in the end they become the textbook speakers. So the teachers depend a lot on the textbooks, and the textbooks are just horrible. Sorry. I'm just gonna try to remain as objective as possible. So anyway, back to what I was saying. So the teachers become they rely too much on the textbook, so they become textbook speakers with no imagination or understanding of the nuances of the English language. And then as a native English speaker, we do run into resistance from many of the teachers to even sharpen their second language skill. They'll just make up their own English. I actually had a teacher once tell me that it's easier to teach bad grammar than it is to teach proper grammar. And I just didn't show up to his class anymore. So yeah, that's what we deal with here. So, test taking for the high school entrance exam is one of the reasons why students as well as teachers just don't get it. And some students become disinterested because it's just mostly grammar, learning mysterious grammar facts, mysterious grammar structure, and mysterious English. So number 2, the quality of the textbooks is quite low, and I'm a witness to this. I can vouch for this. The quality of the textbooks being quite low is an understatement. The textbooks are horrible, and this becomes one of the reasons teachers teaching from them never strive to improve their second language skill. It's year after year of the same miseducational instruction with faith in a textbook that is just unreal. So the teachers don't sharpen their English skills. So they put total faith in the textbook. So yeah. Some of the teachers here are under the impression that, that they know more than native speakers. Some of them will sit right in front of you and ask each other, is this grammatically correct? And just totally ignore you being there. So a lot of us who have been here for a long time that have been teaching English will have 2 teachers sitting right in front of you asking each other, is this correct? And you just sit there like, no, it's not. But yeah, anyway. And a lot has to do with pride, so, and the fact that they're licensed, but the license is just good here. It has no redeeming value anywhere outside of this country. So, right. And that's because being licensed here holds a lot of weight, even though their English teaching license is no good anywhere else but in Japan. So they get a false sense of mastery of something that they are very much still students of, English. Trust me, the textbooks will leave you in awe. Check out my video on the differences between that and which, and also my other video on how to use because. Because in the textbook, yeah, that's a different story. And number 3, focus on translating into Japanese and JTE speaking only in Japanese. Where is the English? And I can attest to this also. And yes, so I know when I was in primary and grade school, this is an anecdote. We learned a foreign language through the lens and culture of the language being taught to us, e.g. French and Spanish. We didn't spend any time talking about which language is harder to learn, or what words can't be translated into either language, or what words aren't in English. So, but that's what you get here. Here in Japan, all of the above is true, not to mention English classes in Japan are taught 90% in their native language, Japanese, with a little break for English. Not a strategy for success in the foreign language they're supposed to be learning, English. So you get classes, most classes here are taught in 90% English. And also another anecdote, or another story, I've met a teacher a while ago who was training a intern, college student. She's going to graduate sometime next year, and he just said, relax, just speak in Japanese because they understand Japanese even though it's an English class. So yeah, when you're supposed to be learning English, you learn English, not learn the language that you are already familiar with. So you get that a lot. And not only that, English is put through a cultural filter where it's only understood from a Japanese cultural point of view. So you don't get the cultural understanding or nuance of why certain things in English are why they are. It's only through a purposely misinterpretation of what the Japanese think native English speakers' culture means through our own language. So I'll break that down for you to unpack that. Of course, you're learning a foreign language in your country, but you're not being taught the language from someone who is a native. You're being taught from the perspective of someone who has probably been in maybe overseas for about a year or two, who have not mastered anything like culturally, like what certain things mean culturally, and they're teaching other people who don't know what the culture behind the language is, because culture and language are intertwined, they're connected. You can't teach one without the other. You have to have an understanding of the language you're learning. You have to have a cultural understanding, but you can't get that from a person who wasn't born in that culture. So you're going to get the interpretation of what they think it means, and they'll use their culture as the filter. So you get there's a lot of missed opportunities to learn something, to learn important things. So yeah, right. So You get some teachers making things up as they go and comparing Japanese to English and miseducating kids about stuff they have no idea about. Like the phrase, yoroshiku onegaishimasu, a phrase that has a few situational meanings. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu can mean thank you, please, and hi. I once had a teacher tell his class, with myself in the class, that English doesn't have words like this with double situational meanings. So yes, you do run into a lot of this, and then you wonder, did you research this? And no, it's just a lot of personal feelings. And sometimes some of these teachers have had bad experiences overseas while they were trying to learn the language because they were taught something, because you get a lot of especially with some of my adult students, and if I'm teaching them something, of course, that natives know, and they'll say, but my teacher in junior high school didn't teach me that, or they taught me this. And you want to be as nice as you want to be nice, you want to be tactful and tell them that wasn't right, you know. So yeah, yeah, you get a lot of that. So like I said, some of them have had bad experiences overseas, and when they come back, they're just like, you know, look, I think your English rules are just too strict. I'm just going to teach it the way I want it. So you get a lot of that. I took that statement to be out of sheer ignorance and pride, something you get a lot here. Yes, they are very proud of their language and think it is the hardest language in the world, which is not. So yeah, like people from the West, we don't look at languages as, well, our language is hard, and well, you know, we don't compare languages to other languages, but they do here. They have a lot of pride in their language, which is good, nothing wrong with that, but just keep the pride there. Let's not start comparing languages, especially something that you don't know, because you've only been overseas for about 1 or 2 years and you don't have a good command of the language. You know, where I've lived here for 18 years and I grew up in America, but I still don't compare languages. It's a waste of time. It just doesn't make sense, because languages are not hard, they're just complex. Some languages are more complex than others. Unfortunately, he didn't do his due diligence and realized that even a simple word like hello in English that he uses daily has 7 to 8 situational meanings and usages. So what you get is most of the class time is spent translating text and repeating and comparing those sizes language-wise, meaning which language is harder to learn. A lot of teachers are stuck on that point, which is not really productive. Native English speakers never have to do this because we simply gauge a non-native English speaker's ability by the way he or she speaks, writes, and pronounces. That simple. If you're a Japanese national that travels to America, you'll notice that we don't talk about how hard English is to learn. We don't have to. There's just no reason to. We can hear by the way you talk, or by the way you speak, or how corrupted your syntax is, or your subject-verb agreements. We'll just gauge how hard it has been for you to learn the language. We never have to say like, well, you know, our language is hard. We don't have to. We just don't think like that. So, something to think about for my Japanese nationals. You You can be proud of your language without having to tell us how hard Japanese is. And remember, languages are not easy or hard. Some languages are just more complex than others. And the English language is just more complex. There are over 1 million words in the English language. If you want to do a comparison to over 60,000, I guess, words in the Japanese language, there are over 1 million words in the English language. So, yeah. So, back to my original point. I'll start with a basic empirical analysis of the problem one more time. The kids in grade school skip phonics as a whole and are pushed into a world of nonsensical English phrases that native speakers do not use. So I guess the educational system changed after 2017, I believe. No, was it 2018, where third grade became mandatory. So when they get into the third grade, it's mandatory that they start learning English. So they learn it from a very strange textbook with a lot of strange phrases that natives don't use. So they start them off there at third grade. Although sometimes they do have teachers that do go into the kindergartens, but it's nothing heavy, and they just play a lot of games and some also strange phrases that natives don't use. So, and this puts them all at a huge disadvantage, because then we have we can see through the TOEIC, TOEFL, and the ACAN scores just what type of harm has been done to them. And Japan ranks low on the TOEIC score, I believe. I've got a chart somewhere in here where they're pretty much close to North Korea. So as far as language is concerned, no one else has a hard time learning English. Not even Russians have a hard time learning English. But then again, I've been to Serbia, and even Serbians don't have a hard time learning English, and they teach each other English. But I think people are more open to learning a different language. The Japanese are afraid culturally, if they don't control a foreign language through their filter, they're going to lose their culture, at sacrificing their culture to learn a language the way it's supposed to be through that culture that they're learning, which is English. It would be the American culture. So, right. Anyway, I'm jumping ahead of myself here, but it catches up with them later when they take the TOEIC, TOEFL, or ACAN level 1 or 2 test. The ACAN level 1 or 2 tests are just very hard, and unless, I guess, you need about 10 years, maybe 5 years, depending on every student's different, but minimum 5 years at an English language center or English language school like mine. And if the kid has been there with you, maybe let's just say from first grade, and they've usually get those really the kids that have been there, those customers that have been there for like years, they'll pass the ACAN no problem. 1 or 2, ACAN 1, forget about it. ACAN 1's about equivalent to like sixth grade. About the vocabulary of sixth grader would know in America in elementary school. So, but the TOEIC, TOEFL are no joke, and a lot of Japanese nationals fail them. So that should give you a definition of what's going on here. Right. Anyway, like I said, I keep jumping ahead of myself here. Japanese nationals who take the tests score very low, and that has a lot to do with what they learn in school and not being able to communicate effectively and write effectively, even though they're taught all grammar points, but those grammar points are archaic and they're just nonsensical. And yeah, so and they're coddled through those years. They're usually never told that what they're doing is wrong, because they have people that are teaching them that don't know that this is wrong. So when they take the real test, when they're on the international stage, where you don't have your teacher running cover for you, you're going to score very low because you're not ready for that. Like I said, and that has a lot to do with the basics that are skipped over during primary and grade schooling. So and you have teachers who don't have a real command of their second language as a whole. And what really surprises me is the teachers don't even take the time to read even any kids' books, which is how I learned Japanese, by reading kids' books. You got to sharpen your language skill. And like I said, they depend on the textbook here. And those textbooks, yeah, I mean, it's year after year the same thing. So, yeah. So in the end, it becomes a classic case of the blind leading the blind. Okay, well, with every problem there's a solution. You know, I don't want to be the, don't let me be the dark cloud today. So I want to, here's my solution. Japan needs to stop being so headstrong at a language that it still cannot and has not mastered, meaning they need to just soften up and just open up and just accept English for what English is, not their interpretation. And Japan should let professionals of the language come in and help instead of trying to do things their own way, which is only hurting them. So, yeah, I guess it's cheaper not to bring people in from America like professionals. I guess they feel like they take over the operation, and it's cheaper just to do things yourself at the expense and, you know, sacrificing the grade or on an international stage that you still continue to score low on the TOEFL and Aiken tests. So, you know, something's got to give, hopefully. You know, no, not hopefully, something's got to give. It's either we're going to continue this road that we're going down, which is, what was that old saying that we used to joke that we'd always tell each other, going downhill fast. But anyway, yeah. There's also the fear factor that if English is not understood through their cultural filter, they'll sacrifice their culture to actually learn English from an English perspective or cultural point of view, which is they're afraid of. Which, you know, of course, yeah, you want to keep your culture intact, but if you're going to try to learn a foreign language, and you're going to have to learn the language through the lens of that culture and not your culture. You can't learn a language or the culture through your culture. You have to learn it through that culture. So that's all. They have a lot of pride. In closing, Japan, you can do way better than this. You've been at this English thing for over 600 years. It's time to up your game. That's my conclusion. Bring those professionals in and just let them go to work. Don't even be afraid. You know, we're not gonna ruin your quote unquote unique culture. I promise you they won't. And that's the end of that. So anyway, if you any comments, put them down in the comment section. Let me know what you think.